This is the first part of a two-part presentation by Ellen Suffern and Jared Jarman. I will be discussing the overall truth claim of the movie Christopher Columbus, The Discovery. First, I will be discussing the truth claim. There was no explicit truth claim in the beginning of this movie. However, there was an implicit truth claim brought about by the title of the film. The title of the film implies the year, which is 1492. Most people know this is when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. The title of this film also implies the location, being Spain, West Indies, Bahamas, and San Salvador. Next, I will be moving on to the visual aspects of the film. There were a few things I found to be accurate and a few things I found to be inaccurate. Starting with accuracy is the way the characters in the film traveled. First off, seeing the characters travel by horse was accurate of the time period. Also, traveling by boat. It would only be fitting to see Christopher Columbus sailing on the Mayflower. Another visual component I found to be accurate was the clothing. The outfits worn seemed appropriate at the times. Women were wearing floor-length dresses, bonnets, and aprons. I also found the setting of this movie to increase the overall truthfulness. The busy towns, stone houses, and the bright colors in the king and queen's quarters all help depict visual accuracy. Lastly, the time period appropriate aspects, these including the cross on the buildings, using candles for light, and the torches hanging on the walls. These all supported the visual accuracy by being appropriate to the 1400s. On the other hand, there are a few inaccuracies visually. The first thing I noticed was everyone's teeth. They were so beautiful and polished. In this time period, it would be almost impossible to have such perfect teeth, since no one had proper toothbrushes, toothpaste, or a dentist. Also, Christopher Columbus appeared almost too happy. Any person would have tough days, and that usually shows through. It didn't seem appropriate that he was always smiling. The last thing I saw to be visually inaccurate was how the natives acted. They appeared almost too friendly. If a different tribe came to your land, I would assume you would be slightly more standoffish and even skeptical. One oral aspect that seemed appropriate for the film was the background noise. The sounds of the farm animals was fitting with the scene and was appropriate volume for what was going on around it. The next component I found orally accurate was the slang used. For example, color and texture fit for a king. Even though this phrase can be heard nowadays, in this time period and location, it was appropriate because there was a king. The first inaccuracy I found orally were the accents. I was surprised to hear Christopher Columbus had a slight French accent since he was from Spain. Also, the fact Diego had an English accent, but his father had a French accent. These inconsistencies cause faults in the oral accuracy. The next inaccuracy I found was the music. In this time period, the instruments played in the background weren't even prevalent in this time era. The first chronological aspect I found fitting of this film was the time period related names and events. Marco Polo was mentioned a few times throughout the film. This would have been very accurate of the time period. Next, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were also mentioned in the movie. This as well supported the chronological truth claim of the movie, since both King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were ruling at this time. Lastly, seeing the Jews being deported from Spain on a ship, the Spanish expulsion. With these three aspects in mind, the overall chronological components seemed accurate. The first chronological component that was a fallacy was the opening scene. At first glance, Christopher Columbus is the perfect gentleman. Then out of nowhere, a fight scene erupts and he's fighting for his life. The portrayal of time in this scene didn't seem appropriate. Next, the length of the voyage. It was hard to gauge how much time had passed while on the ship. Even though the time spent on the trek seemed extremely long, it was hard to know exactly how much time had passed. The first theme I found in this movie was power. Christopher Columbus was hungry for power, fame, and fortune. When he discovered the new land, he was not only demanding a percentage of the riches found, but was planning to gain a noble title of any newly discovered land. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were also fiending for more power. If this newly discovered land was a success, this would only increase their power, fortune, and fame. The last theme I saw to be extremely prevalent in this film was religion. Religion was everywhere. In this film, they showed priests, churches, confessionals, and crosses on buildings being a huge aspect in people's lives. It was almost not accepted to not be religious. In this time period and movie in general, Religion was a ginormous aspect in these people's lives. Christopher Columbus himself was a devoted Catholic and was extremely excited to inspire and spread his beliefs across the world. Overall, I would say that this movie lives up to its truth claim. The truth claim was made implicitly by the title of the film, Christopher Columbus, The Discovery. As a viewer, it is expected to see visual, oral, chronological, and thematic aspects appropriate to the time period at hand. This film does a good job at portraying these aspects as a whole.